Hello, my name is Brian Guzman. I'm going to do my final project, and for my final project, I chose TED Talk. And for the question I chose for TED Talk is how complex personhood manifests in either collective needs or individual needs, and what this means in terms of the end of life rituals and practices. And for the story, for one of the readings I chose was titled Death Without Weeping by Nancy Schipper Hugs. This reading takes place in a city in Brazil known as Alto de Cruzeiro. And in this city, many babies are born without proper nutrition, not being taken care of properly. And what happens here is that many babies and infants are passing away in these conditions. And the reason behind these are because they are not being fed the nutrition they're supposed to, and they are not, and parents have hard time getting money to put shoes on them and being taken care of. And one of the other reasons these happens is because the babies start to get sick due to these dirty waters, and sometimes they get to the point where they starve to death and eventually die. So another reason why this is not a big deal to the Alto mothers is because they have this mindset where if their baby eventually dies, it's not any suffering anymore. So what this means is not that Alto mothers are not and cannot cry due to them for the babies are claiming their way to making their way to heaven. So when a baby dies, a mother becomes very sad but cannot cry. And and one of and the Alto mothers responded, "Why can they not cry?" And this is because the tears are making it slippery for the baby to climb to heaven. And many mothers accept these type of and mothers eventually just have another one. And the reason why babies are, I would say, they are more freed because they don't have to go through these conditions anymore, and they become very more, well, also mothers would describe them as going to heaven with God and living over there in heaven with God and their siblings, cousins. So, and one idea I would say it's death is like freedom to them and to the mothers, where the mothers do not have to nurture or take care of the kids, I mean, babies or infants. And the reason behind this is because they don't have to go, they don't have to, well, live in these harsh conditions and suffer the way the mothers do, our other infants or children around suffer. So when I say death is freedom to them is because the same thing, they don't have to go through these harsh conditions where parents are living in, or they don't have to live the same lives that the parents did. And another reason why I chose this is because I feel this way of on how death is freedom to them is that uh this is coded and it's in page 173. It's a quote where it says, "All too women are likely to say that the death came as a blessing or a great relief. I feel free, or I feel unburdened in many ways, and what many say." So this technically is saying that even if the baby is has passed away, this is not something that affects them in this horrible way, but in reality it relieves them because they are no longer taking care of this infant that was just born, and now instead of being born, they are they are now sent directly to heaven, where they are not suffering at all. And and now I want us to talk about another reading, which is about, and this reading is called "The Optional Sacrifice: A Study of Voluntary Death Among the Siberian Chukchi." And this reading is about it is written by Rain Willers. And what happens here is that Chukchi artists are located in between Alaska and Russia, and they live in these Arctic lands where it's really snowy. And what happens here is that many times it's really harsh conditions where they live in, because not many people survive these type of conditions, and it's very cold, and there's also not many food resources, and the food resources that are actually available are actually stored by these melting tundras. And when this happens, there's not much as food resources as there needs to be for the entire tribe. So what ends up happening is that also there's no imported foods, so they only rely on reindeer herds. And of course, the tundra melts are destroying the food resources. And what happens is that these elderly Chukchi Siberian members become aware of these situations and the suffering of these younger tribe members, and they see death as freedom. For they become they do this where they sacrifice themselves, and not because they just want to give up or anything, but because they feel like they have outlived their usefulness. And what this means is that they feel they're no longer useful. And why this happens because they cannot move, maybe cannot run anymore, or hunt anymore, or take care of the tribe members anymore. So that's probably a reason why they do not feel useful anymore. And the reason behind this is because they're just getting old, and they can't do the same things they would normally do. And what they would do is they would pick out a family member to have them sacrificed, and they are sacrificed. And what happens here is that what happens is that even when they're sacrificed, they have this. It's a normal thing to do in these Chukchi tribes, and it's a wish that one does, elderly does. So for when a younger Chukchi member wishes to die, it is respected by the other tribe members. Often, a family member would kill the voluntary member. So voluntary voluntary is a person who volunteered to be sacrificed, and the reason they chose to be sacrificed is because they feel they aren't useful anymore. And when this happens, is they technically feel like they owe they owe the food resources that they would use, or resources that the elderly would use, is going to be passed down to the younger tribe members. And they feel like this is necessary because it's not a lot of food resources again. And another reason why I would say this is freedom is because death is freedom, and I feel like death is freedom for them because they feel like they I feel like these Chukchi members are not suffering as much. the new younger members of the Chukchi tribe aren't suffering thanks to the elderly Chukchi who sacrificed himself or herself. And another reason why the Chukchi elderlies would sacrifice themselves is also to join their ancestors in the afterlife, in the next world. And there is a quote in page 118 where it says, "The soul goes to the next world where it is reclosed with flesh. Each family group is said to have an ancestral counterpart in the next world, and every newcomer to that world joins his or her own relatives. Just as reindeers that is solitary joins the family herd, the ancestor, the Chukchi say, are always eager to receive the soul of the dead." So what this is meaning is that even after they are dead, there's no, it's actually like a thank you to from the it's something that the younger tribe members would thank them for, and this is because they don't no longer have to go and gather food resources or gather resources to give to these elderly people, and that's just like a more space and more items and resources for the younger Chukchi tribe members. And for my third reading, I picked I picked to find my third reading is Living Cadaver's and the Calculation of Death by Margaret Locke. So what technically happens here is that these these people have these tragic accidents, and result of them having a tragic accident, they become brain deaf or brain dead. And what this means is that for being brain dead, they are taken to a hospital and they're taken care of there. So what it means is that your body is still alive, you're still breathing, but you are considered brain dead because you don't wake up. You're technically asleep. So what happens here is that you're in a state of coma where you don't know what's happening. You d- not the you are technically called dead, even though you're not, but you are considered dead. So what happens here is that family members of the patient or the brain dead patient or family member, they have to have they normally go through these phases where no, not phases. They are So what family members their collective needs are that during the time of the living cadavers, the family members have a hard time trying to accept that their loved ones may never wake up and wondering if there's still hope for them to wake up. So what this means is that family members have a hard time trying to accept if they're going to wake up or not, and if they don't, or if they do, that's completely up to no one. It's no one's option. It's it's just it's just an it's just a matter of no one knows. So when and I also would say the individual needs is is just unknown, because the reason behind this is because the individual or the living cadaver is because they don't know what's happening. They don't know if they're just in a dream or if they're just asleep in a deep sleep, and they are technically, in my conclusion, they are technically dead. And I would say that they may have a better they have a better the patients have a better way on. If it was for them, I feel like they would just choose to pull the plug and eventually go to a better place in the afterlife, as Chuck or Auto Mothers describe, and going to a better place. So the reason this is a really hard time for family members and hospital staff to accept is because they tried to keep this patient alive, even though they there's maybe no hope that they can still be alive. And what happens here is that the family members is left with this option to pull the plug. And by pulling the plug, normally it devastates the family members, and it's hard for them to accept whether they should pull the plug or not. I believe that pulling the plug is a hard choice for them to do, and the choice is totally up to the family members, and it's something hard for them to accept. I do think that it's it's a frustrating time for them to be going through, and their needs will end up being the needs to be free from that, to just be relieved from that situation. So the reason why I compare all these three is because not only do all three have this, it's the same connection where is death is like a free, like I would say, freedom towards this life, or the lives that they live in, the conditions that they are going through, and maybe that death is the answer for their freedom. And a quote, and that would be it.